I'm Alex, and I am 34 years old. Last Tuesday, I watched my brother Oliver pocket a $15,000 Rolex that belonged to our grandmother. He didn't steal it. My mother handed it to him with tears in her eyes. 3 days before the lawyer read Grandma Iris's will. She would have wanted you to have this, Mom said, ignoring me completely. I stood 5 feet away in Grandma's living room, invisible as always. Oliver slipped the watch onto his wrist and smirked at me. But here's what they didn't know. I had Grandma's real will in my car, signed 2 weeks before she died. And when the lawyer opened that envelope Friday morning, my entire family's world collapsed. Before I tell you what happened, let me explain how I became the family disappointment. The Cooper family lived in Oakville, Ontario, in a house worth $2.3 million. My father, Warren Cooper, built a chain of hardware stores across southern Ontario. 12 locations, annual revenue over $40 million. He retired 5 years ago, handed the business to Oliver, and spent his time golfing and reminding everyone how successful he was. My mother, Patricia, was a former real estate agent who now volunteered at charity auctions and posted photos of expensive wine on social media. Then there was Oliver, 38, CEO of Cooper Hardware Supply, married to Bridget, a former pageant queen. They lived in a lakefront condo and drove matching Range Rovers. And me? I taught history at a public high school. I drove a 10-year-old Mazda and rented a basement apartment. Every Sunday, the family gathered for dinner at my parents' house. Expensive roast, imported wine, the whole performance. The ritual never changed. Dad would sit at the head of the table, asking Oliver about quarterly earnings and expansion plans. Oliver would report his victories, his latest deals, his growing bank account. Mom would praise him, touching his arm like he'd cured cancer. Then Dad's eyes would drift to me. "Alex, still teaching?" he'd ask, voice dripping with disappointment. "Yes, Dad. Still teaching." "Ever think about doing something more ambitious?" "Oliver could find you a position at the company. Assistant manager, maybe. Get you out of that classroom." Every single Sunday, the same conversation. I declined politely. Dad would sigh heavily. Mom would pat his hand sympathetically. Last month, Oliver announced his promotion plan during Sunday dinner. "We're opening 3 new locations next year," he said, swirling his scotch. "Burlington, Mississauga, and Kingston. Dad's legacy expanding across the province." Everyone applauded. Mom actually teared up. "Your grandfather would be so proud," she whispered. I set down my fork. Grandpa built those stores with honest work. He actually knew his customers' names. Oliver's smile froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that Grandpa wouldn't recognize what you've turned his business into. Big box stores, minimum wage workers, squeezing out local competitors." Dad's face reddened. "Alex, that's enough. Your brother is a visionary. Maybe if you'd applied yourself like Oliver, you'd understand business." "I understand it fine. I just don't worship it." Mom stood abruptly. "Why do you always do this? Why can't you just be happy for your brother?" I left early that night. Drove to Grandma Iris's house across town, a modest bungalow she'd lived in for 40 years. She was 92, sharp as ever, sitting in her favorite chair with tea and crossword puzzles. "They ganged up on you again?" she asked when I arrived. "How did you know?" "Because I know my son. Warren's been like this since he was a boy. Success over substance, money over meaning." She patted the chair beside her. I sat. "Oliver's destroying what Grandpa built, turning it into something corporate and cold. And they act like he's a hero." Grandma sipped her tea. "Your grandfather would have hated what that business became. But he'd be proud of you, Alex. Teaching history, shaping young minds. That matters more than profit margins." 2 weeks later, Grandma Iris called me at midnight. Her voice was weak, trembling. "Alex, I need you to come over. Now. It's important." I threw on clothes and drove across town, breaking every speed limit. Found her sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of her, her lawyer beside her. "Grandma, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm dying, sweetheart. Doctor confirmed it this afternoon. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Maybe 2 months if I'm lucky. The room tilted. I grabbed the table edge. No. No, there has to be treatment, something we can... Alex, listen. I don't have time to waste fighting the inevitable. I have something more important to do. She pushed the papers toward me. Her will, freshly signed, notarized. I'm changing everything. And I need you to witness this. The old will had split everything evenly. The house, her savings, her stock portfolio, all divided equally between Dad and his sister, my Aunt Claire. But this new will was different. Very different. I'm leaving the house to you, Grandma said, pointing to the document. All of it. The stocks, the savings bonds, the investment accounts. Everything goes to you, Alex. I stared at the numbers. The house was worth $800,000. The investments totaled another $1.2 million. Grandma, I can't. This will destroy the family. Good. They deserve to be shaken up. Warren's become exactly what I warned him against, greedy and hollow. And Oliver's worse. But you, Alex, you're like your grandfather. You care about things that actually matter. She gripped my hand. Promise me you won't tell anyone. Let them think the old will stands. Let them show their true colors. Grandma died 6 days later. Peacefully, in her sleep, the way she wanted. The funeral was scheduled for Thursday. I watched my family transform into grief performers. Mom wore all black, clutching Dad's arm, dabbing her eyes with an expensive handkerchief. Oliver gave a eulogy about Grandma's legacy, her strength, how she'd inspired his business success. It was nauseating. Dad talked about his mother's sacrifice, how she'd supported Grandpa through the hard years, how she'd taught him the value of hard work. Everything he'd forgotten the moment he got rich. I sat in the back row, silent. The only one who actually knew Grandma. The only one she trusted with the truth. After the service, I saw Oliver and Bridget whispering by the refreshments. Bridget touched his arm. Did she leave you the jewelry collection? She asked, voice low but audible. The day after the funeral, Mom called a family meeting at Grandma's house. We need to sort through her things, she announced. Divide the valuables before the estate sale. I drove over, watched them descend like vultures. Bridget went straight for the jewelry box, pulling out diamond earrings, pearl necklaces, an antique brooch. These are gorgeous, she cooed. Iris would want me to have them. Oliver was in the study, examining Grandpa's old pocket watch collection. Worth maybe $30,000 total. I'll take these, he said. Keep them in the family. Mom claimed the china, the silverware, the crystal vases. Dad took Grandpa's golf clubs and the vintage whiskey collection. I took nothing. Just sat on the couch, watching them pick apart her life like carrion birds. Alex, don't you want anything? Mom asked, barely hiding her irritation. I have what I need, I said. Then came the Rolex incident. Oliver found it in Grandpa's old desk drawer. A 1963 Submariner, mint condition, worth approximately $15,000. Maybe more. Look at this, Oliver breathed, holding it up to the light. This is incredible. Mom's eyes lit up. Your father should have this. He's the oldest son. Dad shook his head. No, Patricia. This should go to Oliver. Carry on the family name, the business legacy. Iris would want that. I watched Oliver slip the watch onto his wrist, watched him admire it, watched him look at me with pure triumph. Thanks, Dad. I'll treasure this. I said nothing, just smiled slightly. Let them take everything. Let them think they'd won. The lawyer was reading the will Friday morning at 10 a.m. I could wait 3 more days. Thursday night, Oliver called me. Rare occurrence. We barely spoke outside family dinners. Hey, Alex. Listen, I know things have been tense between us. Have they? Don't be like that. Look, I wanted to give you a heads up. After the will reading tomorrow, I'm planning to buy out Dad and Aunt Claire's shares of Grandma's estate. The house, specifically. Bridget and I want to renovate it, flip it. Could make a nice profit. My jaw clenched. You're going to flip Grandma's house? It's just sitting there, Alex. Empty house, prime location. Would be stupid not to capitalize. Anyway, I'm offering you first chance. You want in? 10% stake, we'll split the profit. I'm good, Oliver. Your loss. Just trying to include you. Don't say I never offered. He hung up. I sat in my apartment, hands shaking, counting hours until tomorrow. Friday morning arrived cold and gray. The reading was scheduled for 10 at the law offices of Mitchell and Associates downtown. I arrived early, sat in the parking lot, watched my family pull up in their expensive cars. Dad's Mercedes, Oliver's Range Rover, and Claire's Audi. All of them dressed in subdued colors, performing appropriate grief. We gathered in the conference room. Dark wood table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The lawyer, Mr. Mitchell, was 70 years old, gray beard, patient eyes. He'd known Grandma for decades. "Thank you all for coming," he began, settling into his chair. "I know this is a difficult time. Iris was a remarkable woman. Can we just get on with it?" Oliver interrupted. "Some of us have work commitments." Mr. Mitchell's expression hardened slightly. "Of course. Let's begin." He opened his briefcase, pulled out a manila envelope. I watched Oliver lean forward, eager. Watched Dad straighten his tie. Watched Mom grip her purse. "I have here the last will and testament of Iris Marie Cooper, signed and notarized on October 14th of this year. 2 weeks before she died. Exactly when she'd called me to her house." Oliver frowned. "Wait, October 14th? I thought Grandma's will was from 2019. There was a previous will, yes. But Mrs. Cooper executed a new document shortly before her passing. This is the valid legal will." Mr. Mitchell began reading. The standard legal language, assets, debts, declarations. Then he reached the distribution section. "I hereby leave my entire estate, including my house located at 47 Riverside Drive, my investment portfolio currently valued at approximately $1.2 million, and all personal property therein, to my grandson, Alexander James Cooper." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Oliver's mouth fell open. Dad went pale. Mom looked like she'd been slapped. Aunt Claire, who'd been expecting half, actually gasped. "That's impossible," Oliver said finally. "There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake," Mr. Mitchell replied calmly. "The will is clear and legally binding." "But the old will," Dad stammered, "the old will split everything between Claire and me. Iris wouldn't just change that without telling anyone. She had every right to change her will at any time, and she chose to leave her estate to Alex." All eyes turned to me. I sat perfectly still, expression neutral. "You knew," Oliver hissed. "You knew about this." "Grandma told me, yes." "And you didn't say anything?" Mom's voice rose. "You let us plan, let us discuss the house, let us take her things. And you knew the whole time you were getting everything?" "I knew what Grandma wanted. That's all that mattered." Dad stood abruptly. "This is unacceptable. Iris wasn't in her right mind. She was dying, probably on medication, vulnerable. Alex manipulated her." Mr. Mitchell's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Mrs. Cooper was evaluated by her physician 2 days before signing this will. He confirmed she was of sound mind, fully competent, and under no duress. I have the medical documentation right here." He placed another document on the table. "Furthermore, Mrs. Cooper left a letter explaining her decision. Would you like me to read it?" "Yes," I said quietly. Oliver glared at me. "Don't you dare." "Read it," I repeated, looking at Mr. Mitchell. He pulled out a handwritten letter, Grandma's distinctive script. "To my family," he began reading. "I'm leaving everything to Alex, because he's the only one who understood what actually matters. Warren, you turned my husband's honest business into a profit machine. You forgot the values we taught you." Mr. Mitchell continued reading. "Oliver, you're even worse. You exploit workers, crush competitors, and call it success. You wore your grandfather's watch before I was even buried, like a trophy. You have no soul, just ambition." Oliver's face went red. Bridget grabbed his arm. "And Patricia," the letter went on, "you enabled all of it. Praised greed, rewarded selfishness. Dismissed the one child who actually has a heart." Mom's tears weren't performed now. They were real, furious. "Alex is a teacher. He shapes young minds, helps struggling students, makes a difference. That's the legacy I want to support. So, I'm giving him everything. Maybe it'll teach the rest of you what you've forgotten. That wealth without character is worthless. With love, despite everything, Iris. The room exploded. Dad shouting about contesting the will. Oliver threatening lawyers. Mom calling me ungrateful, manipulative, cruel. Aunt Claire just sat there, stunned silent. I stood up, grabbed my coat. I'm leaving. Mr. Mitchell has my contact information. You're not going anywhere. Oliver blocked the door. You manipulated a dying woman. You stole our inheritance. I didn't steal anything. Grandma made her choice. She was confused, medicated, not thinking clearly. She was sharper than you've ever been. I stepped closer, and she saw exactly what you are, Oliver. A hollow man in an expensive suit, measuring success by profit margins and car brands. Better than being a failure who teaches brat kids for poverty wages. At least I actually help people. What do you do besides exploit them? He shoved me. Hard. I stumbled backward into the conference table. Mr. Mitchell immediately pressed a button on his desk. Security, please. 2 guards appeared within seconds. Escort Mr. Oliver Cooper out. Now. Oliver struggled, yelling threats, but they hauled him toward the door. The guards removed Oliver from the building. Bridget followed, shrieking about lawsuits and justice. Dad and Mom sat frozen, processing the destruction of their expectations. Aunt Claire finally spoke. How much did you promise her, Alex? What did you do to convince her? I visited her every week, talked to her, listened to her stories, cared about her as a person, not a bank account. We visited too, Mom protested weekly. Once a month maybe, for 20 minutes, checking on Mother, before rushing off to brunch. I looked at her. When's her birthday? Mom's face went blank. What? Grandma's birthday. When is it? Silence. She didn't know. Neither did Dad. March 7th, I said. She turned 92 this year. I took her to lunch, brought her favorite lemon cake. Where were you? More silence. That's what I thought. I turned to Mr. Mitchell. Thank you for handling this. Send the paperwork to my address. I walked out. The next 3 days were warfare. Oliver hired a lawyer, filed to contest the will, claimed undue influence and diminished capacity. His attorney demanded medical records, testimony, depositions. Mr. Mitchell shut it down methodically. Presented Grandma's physician evaluation, her lawyer's testimony that she'd been completely lucid, video footage from her bank showing her updating beneficiaries on her accounts, all dated within days of signing the will. The judge reviewed everything and dismissed Oliver's challenge in under a week. Mrs. Cooper's wishes are clear, the ruling stated. The will stands. Oliver's legal bills hit $30,000. Money wasted. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad tried a different approach. Emotional manipulation. Dad called me Tuesday evening. Alex, we need to talk. As a family. We have nothing to discuss. Please. Just come to dinner Sunday. Let's work this out like adults. Something in his voice sounded genuine. Tired, maybe. I agreed. Sunday dinner was different this time. No expensive wine, no performance. Just my parents, sitting at the dining table with simple pasta and salad. Oliver and Bridget weren't there. Where's your golden child? I asked, taking a seat. Oliver's not speaking to us, Mom said quietly. He thinks we didn't defend him strongly enough. Good. Maybe he'd learn something. Dad cleared his throat. Alex, we owe you an apology. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. We've treated you poorly for years. Dismissed your career, your choices, your worth. Made you feel like a disappointment when you're actually the best of us. Mom nodded, crying softly. Your grandmother saw it. We were too blind. Why now? I asked. Why apologize after you've lost the inheritance? Feels convenient. Dad flinched. That's fair. But Alex, losing the money made us look at ourselves. Really look. And we didn't like what we saw. I studied them, looking for manipulation, for angles. But Dad's eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. Mom's hands trembled. Grandma wrote something else, I said slowly. A letter just for me. Want to hear it? They nodded. I pulled it from my jacket. Read Grandma's words aloud. Alex, they're going to be angry. They're going to fight. Let them. But if they ever genuinely apologize, if they ever truly change, consider forgiveness. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Bitterness poisons the vessel that holds it. I'm giving you wealth so you can live freely, help others, make the difference I know you'll make. But don't let money turn you into what they became. Stay kind. Stay true. And maybe, just maybe, show them what that looks like. With all my love, Grandma. I folded the letter. She wanted me to forgive you. If you meant it. Dad wiped his eyes. What would forgiveness look like? Therapy. Both of you. Work on why you value money over people. Mom nodded. We can do that. And Oliver, you need to stop enabling him. Stop praising greed. Stop rewarding cruelty. He's our son, Mom protested. So am I. But you treated us like we had different worth based on income. That ends now. Dad straightened. Agreed. Anything else? Sunday dinners. Real ones. No performance, no business talk. Just family, if we can learn to be one. They agreed. We ate in careful silence, testing new ground. When I left that night, Dad hugged me. First time in years. Thank you for the chance, he whispered. Don't waste it, I replied. Over the next month, I watched them try. Actually try. Dad started therapy, began questioning his values. Mom volunteered at a homeless shelter, not for social media, but because she wanted to help. They were changing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely. Oliver, meanwhile, spiraled. His business expansion failed when investors pulled funding after the will contest became public. Turns out people don't like family members who sue their siblings over inheritance. His reputation tanked. Bridget left him when the money trouble started, filed for divorce, took half his assets. Within 2 months, he'd lost his marriage, his credibility, and his control of Cooper Hardware. The board voted him out, installed new leadership. Dad didn't intervene. Let Oliver face consequences for the first time in his life. He needs to hit bottom, Dad told me. Like we did. I sold Grandma's house for $850,000. Donated $200,000 to the school board, funding programs for underprivileged students. Put another $300,000 into a scholarship fund in Grandma's name. Kept the rest invested, living modestly, teaching classes, helping kids who reminded me of myself. Young people dismissed by families who didn't understand them. 6 months after the will reading, Oliver called me. 3 a.m., voice broken. Alex, I need help. I sat up. What happened? I'm broke. Lost everything. Living in a motel. Can't afford rent. Silence on my end. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I was terrible. Cruel. Everything Grandma said was true. His voice cracked. But I have nowhere else to go. I could have said no. Could have reminded him of every insult, every dismissal, every moment of arrogance. Instead, I heard Grandma's voice. Stay kind. Stay true. I'll wire you $5,000 tomorrow. Enough for first month's rent and security deposit on an apartment. But Oliver, this is it. One chance. You waste it, you're on your own. Thank you, he whispered. I won't waste it. I promise. He didn't. Got a job managing a small hardware store, entry level, minimum wage. Slowly rebuilding from nothing. Learning what Grandpa knew, that honest work has dignity. 1 year after Grandma died, I stood in front of my history class, teaching a unit on family legacies and values. A student raised her hand. Mr. Cooper, how do you know when someone's successful? I thought about Oliver's Rolex, Dad's Mercedes, Mom's charity galas. Then I thought about Grandma's letter, about the scholarship students I'd helped, about my parents in therapy, about Oliver learning humility. Success isn't what you own, I said finally. It's who you are when nobody's watching. It's whether you make the world slightly better or slightly worse. My grandmother taught me that. After class, I drove to the cemetery, placed flowers on Grandma's grave. You were right, I told her stone. About everything. They're learning. Slowly, but they're learning. The wind picked up, rustling leaves around her marker. I smiled. And Grandma, thank you for trusting me. for seeing me when they couldn't, for teaching me that being the black sheep isn't a curse, it's freedom to become something better. I walked back to my Mazda, still 10 years old, still reliable. Drove home to my modest apartment. Checked my bank account, saw the invested inheritance growing. Money I'd use for good, for students, for change. Grandma's true legacy wasn't wealth. It was showing me that character matters more than cash, that love without strings is possible, that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. I was the black sheep, and I wouldn't change a thing.